Hello, I'm Tony Trongone, Superintendent of Pemberton Township Schools, and welcome to a special edition of Inside Outlook. In my previous programs related to school funding, I mentioned the reduction in state aid through a funding formula known as S2. I discussed several scenarios of what our school budget and funding would look like. In today's program, I want to let our parents, staff, and stakeholders know what we have done in an effort to minimize the negative impact reductions in our state aid would have on our schools, school community, and the residents of Pemberton Township, Pemberton Borough, and Joint Base MDL. Over the last 2.5 weeks, we've been really busy, and there have been several opportunities for us to personally visit lawmakers both in Washington, D.C. and in Trenton to share with them Pemberton's unique challenges that warrant not reducing our funding. Our board president, John Willits, and our business administrator, Dan Smith, attended a National Association of Federally Impacted Schools conference where we are trying to increase our federal dollars for our military families. Most recently, I personally attended 2 state budget and appropriations committee meetings where I addressed both the Senate and the Assembly officials. In this program, my goal is to educate the general public on what is being proposed and how it impacts Pemberton. There have been changes to the school funding formula due to the new law S2 that reduces the amount of state aid we receive for our schools. The aid we receive above the school funding formula is called adjustment aid. That amount was $26 million last year and is currently at $20 million. S2 directs the state to reduce our state aid by $20 million over the next 6 years. As you may recall, Pemberton Township Schools is a former Abbott school district that received state aid above the funding formula due to many economic factors. One being 90% of our land cannot be developed to create ratables. Another factor is community wealth. We believe S2 has not taken into account a number of factors pertaining to the constitutionality of the funding formula as it applies to Pemberton schools and it being a former Abbott school district. 1. Our current weighted enrollment has experienced a 2% drop from 2008, far below the threshold of 5% that prompts a reduction in state aid as per statute 8A 7F 58, which can be found on our website. Number 2, our municipal tax rate was just under the statewide tax rate average last year. If we are at or above the state tax rate average, the state, by law, cannot cut our adjustment aid but reduce the amount of funding over adequacy. Which leads us to number 3. The state has a system in place to assist schools in determining adequate cost associated in educating children. Pemberton Township Schools is over adequacy, which means the amount we should be spending each year, according to the school funding formula, is $10 million more than we are spending. Due to efficiencies we put in place last year, this has dropped from $16 million last year. We have 2 requests. Our first request to the state is relief from the state on the 6-year phase-in reduction of state aid in the amount of $10 million over adequacy, not on the $20 million in adjustment aid. The Supreme Court Abbott 20 decision clearly states that as a former Abbott, we should never be subject to funding below adequacy. Why would you put a 6-year phase-in model that would take our reductions $10 million below adequacy? Our second request is for the state to change state aid funding to address the supports we provide our children that are not currently in the state aid formula, such as homeless students, students affected with trauma, and the supports we provide 1,177 military-connected children and the students who were removed from their home via DCP&P. In closing, we realize there are districts that have been underfunded for years and applaud the Senate's efforts in designing a plan to fund those school districts appropriately. However, we respectfully request a change in the 6-year phase-in reduction model away from adjustment aid to the amount over adequacy, meeting the needs of high poverty, high need students, as well as the many military students we serve, depends on this action. To our parents here at home in the Pemberton area, we will continue to make known the many characteristics that make up our learning community to those outside of our community and make every effort to hold on to any funding our children deserve. In my next program, I will be joined by our Business Administrator, Dan Smith, to offer our viewers an overview of our 2019-2020 budget. Keep an eye out for it. And also, I suggest you watch this video more than once to get a grasp of the content. Again, thank you for watching.